a necessary starting role.
And he can't even drink yet legally. He's
No.
20 years old.
The man rides a bike around Pittsburgh, and he doesn't have his license for whatever reason.
Yep.
But uh, like I said, this team has stepped up in every facet, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm not mad anymore that they picked Juju Smith-Schuster because they worked around that and made our team even better.
Zach, I forget, were you there with us at the?
I was.
Yeah. So we all had this group reaction of when Franco Harris announced the pick. Why did you pick Juju? When you had Brown, Bryant, Sandy Coates, and the rest of the receivers, Eli Rogers, and they were there, we thought it was very deep. But now,
did we? Did all of us?
Yeah, I think we were all there. We said, yeah.
Well, we were all there, but I don't know if I was on board with your guys' reaction. I like what I loved. I didn't love the pick.
I remember that now. Yeah, I think Seiko was a little more optimistic about this pick, and I guess for good reason.
Voice of reason.
I like the pick because of Juju, not because of the depth of wide receiver. There was a lot of uncertainty still surrounding Martavis Bryant. We didn't really have anything as far as we only had speculation if he was going to come back. So that's why I like the pick, because I'm like, I don't know if this guy's going to be here in 1 to 2 years. I really don't. And then Sammy Coates ended up losing the job, and now Martavis Bryant is in limbo. So it's paying off dividends. I just like Juju Smith-Schuster as the player, what he did in the Rose Bowl, what he did at his time at USC. He was very good. A lot of comparisons to Hines Ward, and he's showing that those comparisons were accurate.
Love those.
And then in the end, what was really weird was the Steelers didn't even contact Juju Smith-Schuster prior to the draft. I thought that was a little out there. So they were really taking a chance on a guy they didn't meet with, on a guy they just really scouted at the combine and scouted, via tape. They didn't meet with him. They didn't, take him out to dinner or anything. No one-on-one dinners with Mike Tomlin. So it was an interesting move, to say the least, but I wasn't disappointed with the fact that, I remember that everyone was saying, well, why did they just take Chris Godwin if they were going to take a receiver? It's something about Juju. They must have found out via tape or meeting with the coaches. Maybe Clay Helton said something that they just said, this guy's a Pittsburgh Steeler. And that's what they're really drafting to this point, character guys. You see TJ Watt, guys with motor, guys with character, guys with, a personality, sense of humor. Can we get more of these guys on board? I like don't get me wrong, I love athletic ability. Look at Bud Dupree, a guy that, was very quiet, came out of Kentucky, raw in terms of football intangibles, but man, was he a freak athlete. You couldn't pass up on him. But these guys, I don't know if TJ Watt can do it. I don't know if he's, athletic enough to be an everyday NFL linebacker. This pick's, a B minus, No, it wasn't. Not in the Steelers system. All those guys were A-plus picks because Josh Dobbs, TJ Watt, James Conner, and Juju, what do they all have in common? Character. That is their primary trait, and it's an A-plus all across the board.
It really is. Will has, before we go to break here, Will, you had, I saw you had Chris Godwin stats pulled up. Compare how the Steelers are using Juju to Chris Godwin, because it's night and day.
Yeah, it's crazy, actually. Juju has 3 times as many receptions as Godwin. Godwin's only posted 66 yards on the year. Juju has 3 touchdowns and 17 receptions and 231 yards. So I think the sky's the limit, and I think also that Juju Smith, his versatility in the slot and his potential to move towards the outside and be that true number 2 receiver is what really excites this team at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. He reminds me so much of Hines Ward. And even Juju has openly said, I want to be the next Hines Ward, which is awesome. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we will discuss Martavis Bryant's role in this whole ordeal, because it's both funny, it's aggravating, it's all sorts of things emotion-wise. So we'll come back here on Pittsburgh Sound with a roller coaster after this break. Stay tuned.
Again, I can't play commercials because copyright strikes, because there's a lot of music in there that can't exactly go out on YouTube Air. But besides the point, this is Pittsburgh Sound. I haven't done a live stream in a good bit. Yeah, that's really about it. Pittsburgh Sound is actually might be retiring at the end of the semester because Will Price and John Petrolios are both graduating in December. So that leaves me hanging solo. I don't know how I feel about that, but I don't know if I can carry it on by myself because it is John Petrolios' birthed this show, and Will Price and him started this together, and then I was fortunate enough to join in. So I don't know what I'm going to do as far as the show goes. I might do an independent show, but probably not something Pittsburgh related just because it is me, but it's not me. I would basically kind of be morphing John Petrolios' creation into something that, doesn't really feel authentic. So we'll see where it goes from there. And hopefully my laptop doesn't die.
Pittsburgh Sports Talk Show. You know what it is. This is Pittsburgh Sound on Com Radio.
We back.
You know what time it is, and you know what show this is. Pittsburgh Sound on Com Radio with me, John Petrolius, and your co-hosts Will Price and Zach Sicko. Gentlemen, Martavis Bryant is once again making the entire city of Pittsburgh hate his guts. Can we go 1 week without drama? Long story short, Martavis Bryant is a big baby after what he's done after spending all season hurting the team, being suspended last season for positive drug tests. Spends this season now, at least the first half of it, whining about how Juju's getting more playing time, he isn't getting the ball, and that Juju has to learn his place and everything like that, and it's all one big hoopla is what it is. And speaking of Juju Smith-Schuster, it was during an interview with Martavis Bryant, one of the reporters tweeted that James Harrison was walking by during the interview and shouted, ask him where Juju's bike is. He knows where it is. He stole it. So we have reason to believe that Martavis Bryant was the culprit behind that.
I'm not going to speculate, all right, but I think he has the most motive, too. But also, that's kind of petty. For everything that Martavis has been doing these last couple weeks, I don't think he's that interested in Juju's bike.
Maybe he's not. But anyway, the events that unfolded this week, Mike Tomlin reiterating the team still has work to do in trying to get Bryant to cool it on social media. It's a big distraction. Martavis Bryant has been benched this weekend's game against Detroit. He spent the week on the practice squad and the scout team. Zach, right move, wrong move? Thoughts on that move to bench Martavis?
Right move because I don't want to see Martavis Bryant on another team yet. I'm pretty sure they've gotten plenty of phone calls from contenders, probably teams like the Eagles. The Eagles could use a nice deep threat. But outside of that, I really don't want to see Martavis Bryant moved anywhere because if anything, he adds a decoy factor to the offense. As when it comes down to Sunday night against the Lions, the Darius Slay is going to match up with Antonio Brown. Okay, now that Martavis Bryant's not on the field, who's going to go deep? With that being said, they're going to probably double Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown's still going to do his thing. Probably 5 receptions, 50 yards, maybe even a touchdown. But he's not going to go off for 150, 10-plus receptions, 2-3 touchdowns, or, millions of targets. Darius Slay is top 5 in the NFL, and they're going to double him with the safety over the top. So I'm actually kind of worried about that. And with Smith-Schuster coming off of a concussion, he is playing, so that's good news. But really, he is good because he draws safety's attention. He draws the defense. Whether he's not getting targets or not, he's a factor, very big factor. So, you can't be shading people on social media, especially your own teammates. From Sammy Coates down to Juju, it's been bad, and it's got to stop because that is. The Steelers I'm glad that they handle distractions well, but at the same time, they have too many of them, And so this has to stop. I'd say, they believed in him. They still believe in him, or else they would have cut him a long time ago. The fact that they've kept him around for so long after the year-long suspension and just all the, all the trash he spewed on social media, it's I want to say it's deserved. It's definitely, get on the scout team, get your mind right. I think Brian's the only person he's hurting is himself, and that it's all mental at this point. If Ben says that he hasn't seen like any drop in work ethic as far as practice goes, then this is the right move to, get him to be on board with the team again and not being bored about himself.
Yeah, I'm really glad he is taking a stand and sitting down for a week and really thinking about what his role was on this team. I am worried, though, that this benching, he may say he deserves it, he may say he'll accept it, but inside, you can't imagine Bryant is thinking this is a positive thing for him. So I have a slight feeling we haven't heard the end of this. But anyway, back to football. The Cincinnati Bengals had no chance last weekend. Losers lose. They had one first down in the second half. Andy Dalton was a deer in the headlights, sacked on 4 consecutive plays. The Steelers were neutralized a bit in the second half, because they were stopped on back-to-back 3rd and 1 attempts, but that's where good teams rely on your other units. The defense stepped up. They sacked Andy Dalton 4 times in a row. They downed the Bengals. They gave the Steelers a chance to win, and that fake punt, beautifully called, by the way, work of art. Rob Golden, the Darius Hayward on that sideline. Great stuff. The Bengals, no chance coming into high school winning that game, and Paul Daughtry of Cincinnati Enquirer saying for the Bengals, quote, playoffs are possible, but on the big screen, if you can't beat Pittsburgh almost ever, you're never going to get where you and your fans want you to go, which is, of course, the second round of the playoffs. Vontaze Burfict, meanwhile, is still dirtier than Saquon Barkley's cuts. He kicked... Yeah. I thought that all by myself.
Oh, man.
I thought that all by myself. He kicked Roosevelt Nix in the head and refused to shake hands with anyone before and after the game. Le'Veon Bell went off on this guy. I don't blame Bell. Why is Vontaze Burfict still in the league? So, guys, how did you process this whole Bengals game?
Oh, well, I think it's just the Bungles being the Bungles.
Yep.
But the way I process this game is the Steelers' defense is finally being put on the map. This is a team that prides themselves on athleticism, on speed, on power, and they showed all of that, especially in the second half. I still can't believe to this day that they shut them down for 19 yards in the second half. Like, that is booming. Literally been unheard of the last 4 or 5 seasons in Pittsburgh, because a lot of what happened was we had to age out a lot of our stars. Your Troy Polamalu's, your Ike Taylors, your Lawrence Timmons even, your Woodleys, your Aaron Smiths, your Brett Kiesels, your Casey Hamptons. All those guys who made that ESPN The Magazine cover,
which we'll get into.
I think that was almost 10 years ago,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
10 years ago, we had arguably not arguably, we had the best defense in the league.
The best defense this millennium, I'll argue.
Ooh,
yeah.
I know a lot of people might argue
06 Bears, maybe.
Maybe 06 Bears, maybe the early 2000s Ravens, because they were pretty nasty as well.
But they were right there with us.
Yeah. Those were good times. This team has seen a complete revival, and another person that people forget about is Dick LeBeau. Dick LeBeau was our coordinator this entire time. His protege, Keith Butler, takes over this team. We have a lot of doubts going in, but he's shown that he knows what he's doing. He knows how to. This organization knows how to draft. They know who to pick up, and I'm sure there's still even spots where we could get even better, where we could be easily the most dominant defense in the league.
Run defense.
Right now, we're sitting at number 3 in the league, but they showed this Sunday that they're here and they're here to stay. I'm just so impressed by this team, and I'm really excited to see what they do against opponents like New England.
Zach, would you care to give us a eulogy for the Bengals in their season?
We are gathered here today to mourn, well, not exactly mourn, celebrate the loss that the Bengals suffered. No, the Bengals, I'm still a believer that they're a wild card contender.
No.
Yes.
Wrong.
Steelers are just that good.
Wild card
Yeah, wild card.
in our division.
Wild card in our division.
With the Ravens ahead of them, and they smacked Miami last night.
Oh gosh,
Okay.
they smacked Matt Moore. Yes, yes. What a very prolific top 5 quarterback. Yes,
He's not bad.
he's pretty bad.
Okay.
Zero points against a Ravens defense that is plagued with injuries. A Ravens offense that is plagued with injuries. Anyway, so the Bengals, they played a good They played good teams. Who have they lost to? They've lost to the Texans. They've lost to the Steelers. They've lost to the Ravens, and they lost to the Packers in a close one in Green Bay. So this team can still go. I mean, their record now is 2-5. They can still finish 10-6 and 9-7 and still crack a wild card spot. I don't really see. I mean, all the other teams are really struggling outside of the Bills and say.
Raiders.
Yeah,
Titans.
well, the Raiders have a losing record, and
Raiders, Titans, Jaguars. Don't forget about them.
so they're all going to be in contention. So the Bengals they're in contention. I think they can do it. They have an easy win against the Colts this week. They're going to figure it out. Joe Mixon's eventually going to hit the ground running. I mean, he's a good football player, aside from all of his off the field stuff that we have to make sure we touch on before we talk about this guy and kind of praise what he brings to the table as far as an athlete. So the Bengals, they're not over. They're not done. They have too many weapons to not be relevant. Their defense is still good. They've had one of the best passing defenses. I mean, they limited the Steelers on Sunday for the most part. I really think they can still be a factor, and there's still a whole season left. I mean, we're not even we're almost to the halfway point.
Yeah, you're right about that. There's a whole season left to go, and who knows? I'm going to knock on wood, but who knows? The Steelers someone could get hurt, and the whole thing goes to shambles. So you never know.
Which it usually does.
Yeah, I mean, in January it does. Yes, December is when the Steelers catch fire. So I expect November to be maybe meh, but December, they're not going to lose a game in December, and that includes Ravens and Patriots at Heinz Field. Take another break. When we come back, we will discuss the Steelers' revived defense and preview the Lions game on Sunday Night Football on NBC. Pittsburgh Sound, come ready.
I gotta find a way to charge my laptop. It's trying to pass out on me. Show the world your fencer. Yeah, they don't like it when I talk positive about the Bengals. I mean, I don't know. I'm a Steelers fan, but at the same time, I'm also an NFL fan, so that's just how it's going to have to go. Because I can't just look at the Bengals and say, well, Vontaze Burfict is dirty, so I'm going to, disrespect the whole team, the whole rest of the team. I don't think Marvin Lewis is that good, but I can't deny that they have a talented team. So, I still think they're a wild card team. They definitely have a lot of flaws. Bill Lazor's definitely been a revelation for them on offense, but they've lost to good teams until they lose to somebody. That, if they were losing to, like, the Broncos, if they were losing to, really, really bad teams, then, the Giants, people like that, I'd be like, okay, let's write them off. So, let's see here. They are 2-4. Yeah, see, they're 2-4. I don't know, but we're back.
To Pittsburgh Sound on Palm Radio.
I said it before and I'll say it again. That is Guns N' Roses' Paradise City here on Calm Radio. Zach Seiko rocking out to that bump. He's here along with Will Price and Don Scholius. That's me, and this is Pittsburgh Sound. Gentlemen, the defense has officially, for the Steelers, reached its peak so far. Let's hope it continues. I'd like to compare this season with how last season's 2008 I'm sorry, let me say that again. I'll compare 2017 so far with how the legendary 08 defense finished the regular season. In terms of rushing yards per game, this is where the 2008 defense has this year's defense beat. That season in 08, Steelers gave up 80.2 yards on the ground. That was second in the league.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. The Steelers this season giving up a 111.7 on the ground, which is 15th in the league, right in the middle of the pack. give you kind of an idea of who's first. The Eagles are first in that category, only giving up 67 yards a game on the ground. And you wonder why they're 6-1. That's why. Passing yards per game, though, this is where this season's defense, believe it or not, has 2008 beat. 2008, but barely. It was 178.8 through the year, first in the league. This season, 172.3 through the year, first in the league. And in 08, the Steelers had the Ravens beat in second place by a mile. They had 195.8. Total yards per game, this season's defense is second behind Denver by only 0.2 yards. And 2008, 237 yards on the ground. Oh, I'm sorry, total yards, excuse me. That was also first in the league. So both defenses overall, second and first in the league. Points per game, Steelers this year only giving up 16.6 points per game. Third in the NFL. 2008 finished the season 13.9. Holy cow! First in the league. That's less than two touchdowns a game. It's absurd. Sacks per game. This is what's interesting, and this is what I want to discuss. Sacks per game this season, 2017, 3.42 per game. In 2008, the Steelers finished with 3.1875. So that season, James Harrison went to the Pro Bowl with 16 sacks and was NFL. There was a defensive player of the year. This season, the Steelers are averaging more sacks, but nobody's on pace for 16. So this is a group effort. How much? Wow. Thoughts?
Well, there's a couple of thoughts. I always like to make sure that we clarify how the game has changed. It's been almost 10 years, and as we know, concussions have been a more prevalent topic.
Yep.
And they've done things to get concussions out of the game, however that is. But this team is still pretty early, so they could put up some stronger efforts against the ground attack and potentially be better than 2008. But I'm very optimistic to see this happen with our team, and the revitalization of the defense has been very encouraging. Now, what I'm looking for is consistency, because when we face teams later in the year like New England, who has arguably the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady, who has gashed us our entire career, his entire career in the NFL. Tom Brady has made the Steelers look like babies. Even when we were at our best, Tom Brady has humbled us. So I'm looking for the Steelers to make a statement this year.
Not this year. We will not lose to him this year.
Against New England, because it's kind of ridiculous at this point. I know Tom Brady is great, but across the board, our corners, our defense should be able to match up against that offense.
And Zach, and your honest assessment.
Except for maybe Gronk.
Oh yeah, you know what? Put Shay's year on Gronk, and it's a whole new ballgame. Or maybe Gronk will get hurt again. You never know. Zach, honest assessment of the Steelers' defense. Better than 2008, on pace. Where can they get better? Obviously, the run defense is there. Thoughts?
They can definitely get better because they're still a young defense. This has shades of the pass rush that was, so instrumental in 2005, 2007, 2008. I mean, that's what built the Steelers defense from the ground up and kept them not afloat, made them one of the best. Now that the secondary, I would say this secondary is actually better in terms of coverage than the secondary in 2008.
I agree.
As far as playmaking, you're never going to see another Troy Polamalu until Sean Davis is making one-handed interceptions or Mike Mitchell's forcing more fumbles like Ryan Clark is. As far as playmaking goes, that secondary was definitely better. But in terms of coverage skills, zone and man, I want to tip the cap to the 2017 squad. Now this pass rush, it's young, it's ferocious. Bud Dupree, look at that kind of Sunday he had. Mm-hmm. He was one of my All-Pro picks, surprise All-Pro picks.
I smell an All-Pro.
And T.J. Watt, when he's on the field, he's been good. Hargraves, and you have Hayward there as the veteran to lead the rest of the group. Tuitt's establishing himself as one of the top interior or 3-4 defensive linemen. Hargraves is starting to boost his role even out of a good rookie season. and then Dupree's establishing himself as an All-Pro, and then Watt's playing like he's a seasoned veteran even though he's a rookie. And you can even rotate guys like Arthur Moats in there. And, I mean, the middle linebackers are good even though they don't have a lot of depth. So I think this defense is, I'm still going to give it to the 08 because we've seen the Steelers struggle against the run. We saw Jacksonville in Heinz Field run 12 straight runs, and they couldn't stop Leonard Fournette, even when they knew it was coming. They couldn't stop a Jaguars offense that is mediocre at best. So I know there was a lot of that game, but the Steelers' rush defense was very poor, early on in the season. So, and I think that has to do with our smaller linebackers, guys that are actually designed more to cover the pass and play 3 downs rather than come in 2 downs and just stuff the run like a James Ferrier type, a Larry Foote. So you're gonna get eaten up when those guys reach the second level from time to time. So it makes sense. So like I said, I'm gonna tip my cap to the 08 defense in terms of better overall play, just because they were so great at stopping the run, and it just seemed like they kept offenses off the field all the time. The Steelers defense still kind of has that bend don't break mentality, which I'm not totally in love with.
Yeah, it's still there, and it's still concerning to see teams like Jacksonville run over the Steelers like that. But moving on to Detroit, I don't see that happening because Amir Abdullah has only rushed the ball 90 times this season. That's 17th in the league. That puts him at a platoon back status. The Steelers, I don't think, should have any problem stopping Amir Abdullah. The passing game is where Detroit thrives. They throw a lot. Matt Stafford is 9th in the NFL in passing attempts at 225, but near the bottom of the barrel in completion percentage among NFL starters at only 60%. Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, and other receivers they have in Detroit, they're good, but they aren't A.J. Green, who the Steelers basically neutralized last week. And the Saints last week also were in Stafford's grill all day. They forced turnovers, interceptions in the end zone, fumbles, but Stafford still managed to throw the ball 52 times for over 300 yards. He's a good quarterback. So, recipe for the Steelers to win. I think secondary stops Stafford to an extent. The passing game, though, because they throw so much, like it's basically throwing as much stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks in Detroit. And if it sticks enough, they'll make it a game. But the running game wise, the Steelers on offense, like Zach said, Darius Slay's a great cornerback. Feed Bell, but don't give him too many carries. Maybe cap it at 25 and give James Conner a few sprinkled in there. And also my thing for this week, no deep shots. The Lions are a ball-hawking defense. 9 interceptions, 2nd in the league. They're very good at picking the ball off. Maybe coverage-wise, not the greatest, but they can pick off the football and capitalize on mistakes. So run the ball to avoid that. Check down throws. Ben should do his Alex Smith impression this week. Any other thoughts? Go.
So the reason I want to clarify this because last week was a dominant effort against AJ Green, but we have to explore why, and that's because one, the Steelers got continuous pressure on Andy Dalton, especially in the second half. Did not let him breathe. But two, the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line has been completely depleted. They lost an All-Pro left tackle in Andrew Whitworth last year, or this year to free agency. Their offensive line is a weird mix of old veterans and young inexperienced guys, but not veterans that have stood the test of time. More like guys that they had to pick up to complement different parts of their offense because of injuries, and so their team was not at or their offensive line was not at its full potential because the Bengals in the past have had really good offensive lines and they've been able to make games way more competitive than what we saw on Sunday. Now, I'm not saying that Detroit has an all-pro offensive line, but the Steelers are going to face a little bit of a test on Sunday night because this team is up and coming. There isn't really anyone on this team that pops out at you, but Matthew Stafford is a borderline Pro Bowl quarterback. And
I think he is one.
Yeah, and when he is on, he's on. So I really, if the Steelers have if the Steelers sincerely want to lock down receivers like Golden Tate, um, yes, Joe Hayden and Artie Burns are going to play, and Will Gay are going to play a big role into that. But our front seven has to create pressure on every play of the game. If they cannot give Matthew Stafford the chance to wind up and throw deep because he will burn you.
Absolutely. And Zach, do you see the running game for Detroit making any kind of impact in this game?
They do get T.J. Lane back there, one of their best offensive linemen in the group, and I know that the Saints capitalized on that because he really is the anchor right there at the right guard spot for the Detroit Lions. So I can see definitely kind of a hybrid offense. I don't think Amir Abdullah is going to run all over them. Stephon Tuitt's out. I don't like that. He's listed out with the back injury,
He didn't play.
and it's the same thing on the other end. Marcus Gilbert's still out, so hopefully Chris Hubbard can stay up because that's one of Detroit's biggest strengths is their front four. They got a lot of good guys along the line. I know Haloti Ngata's out, but you look at Ezekiel Anza, he broke out last year. Freak of an athlete, kind of a Bud Dupree, except on the D line rather than playing as an outside linebacker. So very similar traits. So the Steelers got to find a way to stop him, whether that's Jesse James chipping or Le'Veon Bell staying in to protect. This game could be closer than advertised. But just who the Lions are getting back from injury and who the Steelers have to sideline because it's gonna play a big role, but I don't think it's gonna factor into a win or loss as far from the Steelers' concerns.
Well, and when I said about going deep, I think the fact that Vance McDonald's hurt this week too, the Steelers tight end out this week as well, and leaves you with only one capable tight end of catching passes, and with AB probably going to be neutralized by Darius Slay, you have Juju, Eli, and Jesse James for
Xavier Grimble.
Xavier Grimble, who is not horrible, but he's not the greatest. And Bill out of the backfield. So that kind of limits Ben's weapons when Slay's on Antonio Brown. They're going to double team him, obviously. So that means you have to run the ball. Run the ball, sustain drives, take time off the clock, keep Stafford off the field, and get points. Red zone offense has to be better. The play calling these last few weeks has just been not good. You can't keep settling in the red zone for field goals. Your defense can't keep bailing you out. This has to be a complete effort going on the road in prime time to facing a pretty decent team to win this game. You have to be complete. So those are our thoughts on that. I genuinely think the Steelers have a pretty good chance in this game, but still, that's why any given Sunday, that's why these things happen. That's why you play the game. Take another break. When we come back, we'll talk about the team in our town, the Penn State Nittany Lions, with an even bigger game than last week, if you can say that. Because last week was big. This week, going to number 6 Ohio State, Penn State number 2, even bigger. Penn State, Ohio State next on Com Radio.
Man, we got Mello, PG,
Good, I'm glad we get to talk about that. Bleacher Report's giving mad respect to Adam Brenneman. I'm on Twitter right now, and I'm seeing that Adam Brenneman's, has a feature on him, and I think this is great. Former Penn State tight end, transferred. He had a bunch of knee injuries and just decided to transfer after Bill O'Brien left, and now he's making waves at UMass.
Sound of horror and party hard. This is Pittsburgh Sound on Com Radio. Pittsburgh Sound on Com Radio, back for another segment here. This time talking Penn State football. Gentlemen, are you ready for Penn State football?
Are you supposed to be Dean DeVore?
I am Dean DeVore. That's a first down, Penn State.
It was close, but no cigar.
Yeah, it's all right. Zach, what do you think about my Dean DeVore impression?
I knew who you were. I liked it. I thought it was funny.
Love Dean DeVore here on this show. Pittsburgh Sound is back with Penn State football. And another guy who has a great Dean DeVore impression, you should ask him something next time you see him, is Brian Tripp. On Com Radio's pregame show last week before the Michigan game, he said a loss to Michigan would have been the easier thing despite the hype. Now, let's discuss this, and before we get into the actual game itself, there's the implications surrounding this game. A Penn State loss could mean this. They're not totally buried to win the Big Ten Championship yet and have an easy road to the playoff. OSU's remaining schedule is not easy. It includes going to Iowa, where Penn State had to win the game in the final second. They host Michigan State, who's good, and they also have to go, of course, to Michigan. Those games are all close. They're all tough games. Penn State, meanwhile, they have to go to Ohio State, go to Michigan State. Then they welcome the three worst teams in the Big Ten, Nebraska, Rutgers, and Maryland. Penn State is for real. It is time to start discussing them as a national championship contender. Saquon Barkley is your Heisman frontrunner. The defense is arguably the best in the country, if not top 3 in the country, only giving up a total of 3 points in the first or third quarters. That's the stuff of, in the NFL annals, that's the stuff of the 70s Steelers. That's how good they were in the 70s, and Penn State is putting up those same numbers now. But what are the outright chances? Let's just break the matchup down here. Ohio State's offense, J.T. Barrett, among the best in the country. He's just gotten better every year. He's somehow still eligible to play football, somehow. But they're a great offense. No Zeke Elliott this time around, but they're good. Penn State's defense, best in the country. The first playoff rankings come out on Halloween on the 31st. This is an interesting one. Initial thoughts?
Go ahead, Zach.
This it's Penn State's toughest test. They've shown that they're not as good away from Beaver Stadium, and understandable. Beaver Stadium just adds already a 7-point advantage, if not more, to Penn State's total score. But Ohio State, even though that Penn State still sees themselves as the underdog and has, kind of the, we're disrespected mentality, so does Ohio State. So far what I've seen is that, the public is picking up on what Penn State is, how they played. Last year, it took them forever, and then when it came to USC, they finally said, okay, Penn State can play football. Let's take them against USC. Well, USC won. This is interesting this time because they're doing the same thing against Ohio State. Now, Ohio State hasn't played a good team since Oklahoma. They've only beat Nebraska, Maryland. They haven't really played a lot of good competition. There's the bias, or not a bias, there's the statistic that J.T. Barrett struggles against top defenses, and that's very true. And Penn State has the #1 scoring defense right now, a top 10 total defense, and they were able to rip apart Michigan's #1 total defense. So offensively, this game could very well be a shootout. Both offenses are extremely good, and maybe Ohio State has found, a new life after getting embarrassed by Oklahoma on their own turf. So I think that Ohio State has taken enough of a step back to give room to Penn State. Penn State is definitely much improved, and they're slightly above Ohio State in terms of total skill. If this was a neutral field, I would totally give the advantage to Penn State, but the fact that it's in the horseshoe and they're doing this whole blackout thing, or gray out, or whatever they're doing, I think that's just an added effect. This is an environment that I don't think Penn State's seen yet. The horseshoe, this Penn State team with the new culture, with all the new studded stars, and James Franklin, as one of the best coaches in college football. This is a new environment for them, so it's interesting to see how good this team is if they can adapt.
Will, you said you're optimistic. Why?
I'm optimistic because we have arguably the best defense in the league. If you look at Ohio State's resume, these last 5 weeks, who have they faced? They faced Army, UNLV, and then faced literally the bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten in Rutgers, Maryland, and Nebraska. They have not been tested since Oklahoma. And guess what? When they did get tested, They failed.
And Baker Mayfield planted their flag in the center of the field, which was hilarious.
Good.
And we know now that Oklahoma is not even as good as people predicted them to be early on in the year. So what does this say about this Ohio State team? It says that they have not really had a true test this season, and I don't understand why the vibe in this game is so negative, because we are the big dogs in this situation. We're coming in as the number 2 team in the nation. Granted, it is a hostile environment, but we faced one of those in Iowa and came out victorious. Now, I'm not comparing Ohio State to Iowa, because those are 2 very different programs. They have 2 very different styles of play.
Yep.
And it was in different portions of the season. Almost a month ago, over a month ago, we faced Iowa and came out on top. And that was a hard-fought game. So I also believe that our biggest weapon is our coordinators. Joe Moorhead is the most creative offensive coordinator in college football today. The way that he exposed Michigan last week, I had to tip my cap to him, because he was showing them things that they were obviously not prepared for. And he was taking advantage of matchups, i.e. Mike Gesicki and Deshaun Hamilton, in ways that teams hadn't been able to all season against Michigan. And I know for a fact that there's stuff that they've been working on all season long that they have not yet shown against other teams, that they've been preparing for this game against Ohio State. So this team is going to come out. They're going to come out ready. They're going to come out willing to play for each other as a family, as a cohesive unit, because this team has more swagger, has more unity than I've ever seen in a Penn State football team. And I'm talking teams that have made the Orange Bowl and won it back when the Orange Bowl was one of the top 3 games in college football. This is the most excited I've ever been for an Ohio State-Penn State matchup, and I can say that with 100% confidence. This might be the biggest game we see for the next 10, 15 years, perhaps. And
even if they go to the championship game this year, you're going to maintain that?
Yes, because just of the connotation.
Yep.
If you think about where Penn State has come since they faced Ohio State last year, this is a whole new ball game. This is a completely new team. The faces look the same, but they have a way different mentality, and they have been willing to lay everything on the line out on the field. And from top to bottom, I have a lot of confidence in this team. They are gonna. I'm not gonna guarantee that they're gonna go in there and shut Ohio State up, but I'm also not willing to devalue this team just because of a few. What's the word I'm looking for? Few
intangibles.
Yeah, intangibles, or a few doubts that I may have about how the game of football is played. This is if you are a Penn State fan, and I'm calling out everyone who's listening right now. If you are a Penn State fan, we need you to have supreme confidence in this team, because I know it's been a while since Penn State has reached the heights that they have in this program, but we have something special here, and we cannot let that go to waste as fans and as supporters of this fantastic football team.
Absolutely. And I agree with you that it's a very, very big game, and Penn State should not be taken lightly in this game by the outside world. We've seen it. Penn State made a statement against Michigan. Now they're going on the road to a hostile environment. And they can make it there, and the rest of the season is, there's a lot of anticipation coming out the rest of the season. So we'll go one more break. When we come back, Penguins and predictions on Pittsburgh Sound.com radio.
Ooh, YouTube. I'm looking at just a preview, statistical, football analytical preview for Penn State, Ohio State. Man. Historically, Penn State is atrocious in the horseshoe. That's historically. And history repeats itself, but that's not a deciding factor. Penn State, I believe that defense wins championships. I mean, this is the number one defense going against the number two offense. Granted, they haven't played anybody good since Oklahoma, and Oklahoma did what they did week 2. It's a different Ohio State team since week 2. That was a mirage. Never believe what's happened in the past. This is a new team. Same thing with Penn State. Penn State, they're 7-0. 4-0 conference. But I'm not 100% sure they win. I really don't like it when the public is just kind of just blindly accepting that Penn State's going to win this or come close. I don't know. Find out with my prediction.
Pittsburgh Sound on Com Radio, and if you forgot already, that was Drake's song Back to Back, and we're going to discuss our back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins and a great week this week. I love this organization because as soon as they have a mistake, they fix it. Antoniemi was giving up more goals by himself than 3 teams in the National Hockey League. Penguins waive him. They needed a third-line center. Wait to the price shop for Riley Sheehan. They got him. Phil Kessel is on fire right now. Back-to-back all-time winners. Matt Murray is elite. He is legit. The Pittsburgh Penguins are on their way to a three-peat of being the Stanley Cup champions. Now, take that what you will, guys. Zach?
I'm glad they cut Niemi. I think I'm not the only one that. I mean, you're definitely the happiest in the room, but
yes, I am.
It's something. It's a change they had to make. I know they got to bring up a youngster. That's why they brought in Niemi because the Penguins were saying, well, we need a veteran presence. He was good at one point, but Casey DeSmith, hopefully, he can be DeSmith.
Yeah, he
can be the revelation that the Penguins need as far as a change up for Matt Murray. But Matt Murray's been really good when he's in front of the net. So Penguins, they turned it around after that, that opening skid to start the season. And I like offensively didn't have any questions. Defensively though, obviously Niemi was giving up the goals that he was allowing, but that defensive line wasn't doing much to stop them either. The game against the Lightning, the game against the Blackhawks. I know he was back there, but the defensive line's got to step up too. And maybe there was just a chemistry issue. There's obviously something different when Matt Murray's on the goal. The defense just plays extremely better, and the coaching, the managerial staff just said it's time for a change. And I'm glad they made this now rather than waiting till the middle of the season. And it's gonna pay dividends, and they're well on their way to another deep playoff run.
Hey, Will, guess what?
What's up?
The Penguins are in first place, and the Carolina Hurricanes win the next couple games, and the Flyers don't. The bottom 3 in the division are the Rangers, Capitals, and Flyers.
Jeez Louise.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and also Phil Kessel is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion.
You bet he is.
And he had the most exhilarating... Last night, when he scored that breakaway overtime goal, I was literally... I went from a seated position on the couch to literally standing on the couch and yelling. I was actually watching kids, and I had sent them to bed, and I had to prevent myself from waking them back up because I was that pumped.
Nice.
But man, this team, like you said, John, to open up, Jim Rutherford has, since he's become the GM, has changed the entire outlook of this team. It's really hard to believe that, I guess, almost 2.5 seasons ago, the Penguins were slated to not even make the playoffs.
That's right.
And we had that hoopla with Johnson and as our head coach, and we got rid of him. That's really where it all started for us, because once Sullivan came in and once Rutherford decided to start dropping bombs, the Penguins have been near unstoppable. And he made the move to bring up Matt Murray too,
yes,
which is crazy.
Yes,
and so when we talk about Casey DeSmith, I'm excited because we have great homegrown talent, and I think that this move was probably going to happen sooner rather than later. And I'm glad that they pulled the trigger.
Real quick, because we gotta get out of here. Score predictions: Penn State, Ohio State, Steelers, Lions. Zach, go.
Oh, why'd you pick me first? I think the Steelers win 27-24 over the Lions. They are in the road, and the Lions are coming off a bye week, and they're getting some injury players back. So I like the Lions to keep this closer rather than further apart. And you guys aren't going to like me for this. I'm going to change my pick. I originally had Penn State over Ohio State. I'm going to take Ohio State over Penn State. But the same score, 34-31, and that is going to be my final prediction. I think Ohio State. Penn State covers the spread, but Ohio State, they're going to get the last laugh, unfortunately. But the good news is that Penn State won't tumble in the rankings if they do fall to Ohio State, and they're very much in the thick of things when it comes to the Big Ten championship and even in the college football playoff.
True. Will?
Well, I'm going to stick with my confidence in my team, Penn State. I'm going to go 35-31 Penn State on the road. It might come down to a final drive by Trace and the boys again.
It's one of those games.
And then Steelers, I'm going to give them 30-21. I just feel like they need a statement win against a decent team, and this could be the time. They play relatively well on prime time, so we'll see.
Penn State 21, Ohio State 17, Steelers 30, Lions 21. That'll do it here for us at Pittsburgh Sound, alongside Zach Seiko and Will Price. I'm John Petrolius. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good weekend, and happy Halloween.
The latest news concerning.
Yikes. Yeah, I don't usually go against Penn State a lot. The last time I picked Penn State to lose was against USC in the Rose Bowl. I don't know. Just a lot of things point to State losing. But thanks for tuning in to my YouTube live stream broadcast. I think I'm going to broadcast my second show here, 60 Minute Timeout, Matt Harvey. So stay tuned in here, and I'm going to bring it to you.